Hey there, welcome to the Doing Good Business podcast, hosted by Kelly Stewart, business strategist helping companies to do good in all aspects of their business, and me, Laura Heacock, a leadership coach helping professionals bring kindness into business. Doing Good Business is a podcast for leaders who want to bring their whole selves to work and create companies that make a real difference in the world.
Hey there, welcome to Doing Good Business. This is Laura, and I am here, as always, with Kelly Stewart. And today we are joined by Katie Wright. Katie has a company called RightCause Consulting, and I'm going to let Katie tell us a little bit about what she does, and you will hear, I'm sure, why we had to have her on the podcast. Hey, Katie.
Hi, thanks for having me. My company is RightCause, and what I do is I help businesses find mutual benefit with nonprofits through marketing, and it's called cause marketing. And what I do is create these cross-sector partnerships between the two entities so that they can help each other promote, fundraise, raise awareness of whatever their business objective is in a way that benefits everyone. So not just the company, not just the cause, but also the community.
That's awesome. Can you actually define cause marketing? You know, for folks that aren't familiar, is that kind of the term that you've coined for what you do? Is that a term in the industry? But tell us a little bit about cause marketing. You know, if you had to write the Wikipedia definition, what would you say?
Yeah, so it's kind of confusing because there's a few different terms that are all kind of housed under the same umbrella, but cause marketing or cause-related marketing is cooperative marketing strategy. So it mutually benefits a for-profit and a nonprofit organization or a social cause in some way. And that is typically under the umbrella of CSR or corporate social responsibility. And that's a business approach that uses cause marketing to promote a company's positive environmental or social impact. So, you know, cause marketing is the vehicle of how they're telling the story and using that content and sharing with their stakeholders, internal and externally. But the CSR or the corporate social responsibility of the business is usually where that initial effort is housed.
Got it. Thank you. And we talked a lot about corporate social responsibility in last week's episode. So funny how that works out, isn't it, Kelly?
It is funny. And, you know, I met Katie probably within the last year, I would say, right, Katie?
Yeah, earlier this year.
And Katie has, aside from being just fun and fabulous, she has a fabulous strategic mindset for all of this. So, Katie, I remember one of the first times we were together, you were giving me an example of something, and just the way you laid it out, it was like watching dominoes fall as you went from like, yes, we're going to start here, and then we're going to do these 97 things. And I was like, wow, right? I was just so impressed with how meaningful everything was and the way that you see opportunities. So I know Laura's going to want to ask you on the kind of the personal side of cause marketing and how you got into it, but just since you just defined cause marketing, can you give us some examples that, you know, theoretical, hypothetical, or actual ones that you've used that would help our listeners understand what that means?
Sure. I mean, cause marketing campaigns come in all shapes and sizes. And it's not just for these big brand names that have huge budgets to be promoting with commercials or anything like that. It could be super small, and it can be for B2C or B2B companies. So, you know, one of the flagship ones is Tom's shoes. So That's a buy one, give one kind of strategy where that business commits to, carrying out a defined social good, and that purchase of their product or service would then in turn create a measured impact against that goal. So, you know, you buy one of their shoes and they give one or one pair away for those in need. So there are examples of this everywhere, and there are specifically examples of good and bad ones. So my goal is, well, you know, when Kentucky Fried Chicken is promoting large sizes of soda in support of cancer, and you know they're getting backlash for cancer causing carcinogens in their soda.
Right.
And it doesn't necessarily align with what you're touting as a social good. The consumers will pick up on it, and with social media, you will be quick to be put front and center in not the right way. So my goal is to make sure that businesses are able to do good things and not have to worry about that jeopardizing their good name. Doing it the right way and having it perceived with all the right intentions that they had in the first place.
I love that. It's so funny that you just mentioned social media. So somebody that I follow yesterday had put up an Instagram story, and it was, I don't even know if it was like a museum or something that they were visiting, but there was an exhibit all about the environment and how switching to a plant-based diet has such environmental benefits, and took pictures of all of these signs, and then went into the cafeteria, and what do you think was on the menu? Hamburgers, hot dogs, all kinds of these products. And they Instagram storied it and tagged that organization and showed why do you say these 4 things? And then this is what you're serving in your cafeteria. So as soon as you said that, I was like, oh, now I see what you're talking about.
Yeah, you definitely have to back it up. If whatever you're talking about being, and that's what is hitting a lot of headlines now, are big brands like Nike taking more political action. If they're not ready and willing to back up what they're touting and what they're putting as their values of their company, that's going to have backlash. But Nike did great with it. They handled that campaign fabulously, and they were able to say, no, these are the core beliefs, and no matter how you're trying to politicize this, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the real cause and the real democratic version of, just in the sense of democracy, of everybody coming together and having equal rights. So, there's definitely the right way to do it.
I love it. Yeah. So it's got to be more than just a PR stunt, from what I'm hearing you say. That's kind of to extremely, massively oversimplify. But, basically, if you're KFC and you're selling larger sodas to benefit cancer research, that's not exactly more than a PR stunt. But when you're Nike and you really defend the Colin Kaepernick campaign and all of that kind of stuff, that is actually tied into your values, and it goes deeper than just, the eye of the media at that moment.
Absolutely. And that's, part of my process when I am consulting with these businesses is saying, we first and foremost have to go through discovery, because I can't give you a campaign without knowing your business's purpose, because it needs to be housed with something authentic and that really lives in your company in order for any of the cause marketing, which is that PR and outreach method, for any of that to have, validation in any sort, it needs to live within your company. And we start with identifying that purpose with your internal stakeholders and external. So it's employees, it's not just the leadership, and it's your clients, your consumers, gauging where that common ground lies, and that's where we can pinpoint where your purpose is.
And now Laura and all of our listeners know why I love you.
Exactly.
Because you think about this in a way, you use all the words, and a lot of words that we talk about. That's kind of, we were saying it's the subtext to what we're doing here. In addition to bringing personal and professional development together for people, we also unpack a lot of these words, right? I think that's part of the problem. I mean, we've joked about it a lot, but words do matter, and we need to unpack them. And you touched on authentic, right? And you touched on strategic. That's really what makes it all meaningful. That's where you get to impact. And if you're not doing those things, again, all good is good, right? I would never say, no, don't just make a singular cash donation to a nonprofit organization, because I know there are so many who need every dollar that comes in, right? But when you are doing this as part of a larger strategy, there's so much more to think of. And that's why I love to hear you always talk about this and about the work that you're doing. So before because I know Laura's going to have a lot of questions for you, before she starts about that, I wanted to know, do you see any areas, now you touched on Nike and what they're doing in terms of some of the democratic thing, putting some toes into the political waters. Are you seeing either more of that as a trend or other things that are happening, whether that's equality. Obviously, the environment is talked about a lot. Are there any other things that are kind of coming up on your professional radar of like, wow, that's interesting, that's really getting a lot of attention, something that either surprised you or didn't surprise you, or just things that our listeners should know about?
Yeah, so I'm not necessarily seeing a consistent trend towards one impact area or another. I mean, I think the social causes are really in the forefront right now. But what was really surprising to me was not necessarily what they were supporting, but why and how they were engaging people to support. So what I'm seeing more and more is the need for employee engagement. So it's not even necessarily people doing this for the brand awareness or as marketing their services. It's more about engaging their workers who are, constantly these employees and employers are constantly battling that turnover, hiring and retraining and that huge cost that accompanies that. So employers are becoming more and more open to cause marketing and CSR initiatives, merely just to engage their people more and reach out to them in a way that they think means something more to them and will engage them longer term.
I think that's great. We touched on that in last week's episode also. And with that comes then different metrics that you need to look at to see how is your program working. Not only, quantifying what did you do for them, how did you help, and whether that's, again, pro bono hours, whether that's volunteer hours donated, but also what was the outcome of all of that. And when you're looking at employee, if you're doing it to build culture, then it's the employee metrics, right? You're looking for better productivity. You're looking for, absenteeism to go down. And I'm sure a whole host of other things that you look at as well to kind of gauge, is this working for that? Because certainly we want to support the nonprofit organization, the cause, but if we're using it as a business objective, then what does that look like? Yeah. What do you measure?
Yeah. And I think about, like in Kelly's example, like if you're going to go towards retention, then employee engagement is the perfect thing to measure. And I think of, to go back to the Nike example, like all of the people who were burning, they're already bought and paid for Nike gear. And I'm just sitting there thinking, Nike is laughing all the way to the bank with your dollars. In that example, right. Nike's probably measuring profit, whether you support the brand or whether you already supported it. But it's like, that is a good point. Like, how do the causes that you help people align their marketing with, how do they become measurable? Like, what kinds of things do you see driving the company's desires to get into choosing to market and to partner with these kinds of organizations, with causes and nonprofits?
Right. So, their Boston College, their Center for Corporate Citizenship, they put out studies every year, and they put one out recently that 74% of employees say their job is more fulfilling when they have opportunities to make a positive impact, whether it's social or environmental. 74%, that's a huge amount. So when the majority of your workforce is looking for the opportunity or some sort of outlet to give back, and they're looking to you, because this illusion of work-life balance is just that, it's an illusion. You're there a lot of the day. So they want you as the company that has the leverage to do these big initiatives and be a greater impact than the sole person typically can be. It's on that company to really come to the plate prepared and have something that is going to be the most inclusive as they can possibly be. So that's why I say, it's not necessarily the impact area, whether it's environmental issues or equality, but what is going to engage their employees the most. And then measuring that can be as simple as, looking at your turnover rate. Did it go down year over year? Giving employees surveys just to give feedback. When I worked on the Smarter Planet campaign for IBM, when I was I had the opportunity to go over to Australia and intern at Ogilvy and Mather on their Asia Pacific team. And this was an incredible campaign, not only for external purposes of marketing the IBM software systems, but internally. They had blogs for their employees all over the world to connect and give feedback. And for a company that's typically more business to business, and you don't get that satisfaction on the employee level of servicing an individual, typically, it's really fulfilling. It's seeing your hard work actually being employed by the consumer and hearing their stories of how it changed their business long term and for the better and for the community. It was really, really inspiring for them. And people rallied behind it. They saw success of that campaign, and it's still going. So, that's been around for 10 years, I think, by now. So, yeah, it's
a great example.
On the consumer. Yeah, the companies really need to step up and make sure that they're providing what they need to for these employees.
And I think you also touched on a really key aspect of that, too, because you said year over year, right? There's a year over year component to this. This is not necessarily a once and done initiative for business leaders that think, I can check that off the list, right?
Corporate social responsibility done.
Right.
We had that event earlier this year, and now we're done, right? But it's something that is increasingly, especially when you're looking at it through the employee lens, it's something that's increasingly becoming part of the culture. Back in the day, it was, we provide free coffee. And believe me, many of us were very happy with that.
Right.
Because you were getting it. And not every company did that, or free parking, right? So it's becoming, and it's far more than a perk because of the very, in some ways, and not a word you hear about in business all the time, it's intimate. Right? You're establishing that connection with other people. It's a very personal exchange that happens in that. And so it can't really be considered a perk. It should be part of what the business really values. And
and that, that totally lends to why I bring it back so much to strategy. And strategy can have a kind of negative connotation in this context where if it seems like, it's so calculated. But no, it's calculated for all the right reasons, because if you did not bring this back to the business benefiting from it, there would be no long-term investment for them. Why would they keep this going if it was only hurting them or just flatlining? It would be the first thing to cut when budgets come around. So if you can really embed this and get your employees rallied and other stakeholders rallied behind it, including leadership, it should be something that is instilled in your company, and it's just another part of doing your business that would never be cut. You're not going to cut your accounting department. It's something that is totally supported by everyone, and even leadership ambiguous. It shouldn't just be because the CEO is on the board of such and such, and it's because the employees really have a connection to this because you've taken the time to ask them and really find the common ground of everyone and connect it back to your business's purpose. Why are you guys all there? Why would people care if your business didn't exist tomorrow? Finding that common good, it's going to make it last longer, and because it's like all marketing. It's not going to show you an ROI the next day, the next month. It's a long-term investment. It's something that you have to maintain and nourish and really keep up with.
I agree. In last week's episode, Laura was mentioning, she gave an example at her husband's company, and what he does, he handles the IT for the company. And, he has a choice when they order computers to just take all of that stuff and throw it in the dumpster, all that packaging material. But he actually parsed it all out, and he found someone who would recycle the styrofoam. He even found someone who would take the older computers, right? So this is fabulous stuff. And we talked about the difference between feeling like it's something you have to do and then thinking of it as this is a corporate giving strategy, because in some way it is, right? There are causes to be supported there. He's supporting a nonprofit, right? He's supporting the environment by making those decisions. And I think too, I love the way that you set that up. Right strategy can seem self-serving. It can seem boring. It's just kind of sucking the joy out of, something that should just be spontaneous and large and fearless, right? And it still should feel as just as exhilarating to do all of that. But I think that it's really important to have that business case. But if you put it under, kind of flip it from something that has to be done to something that is good to do, the benefit for the business in that case too is now you're looking at something you've done every day through a completely different lens. Yeah. You're looking at a stakeholder group, especially when you tie it back to your purpose. You're looking at a stakeholder group that you haven't quite looked at in the same way before. But now when you're thinking about it in terms of supporting causes, right, creating an impact, you don't even know what that's going to open up for your organization. There's probably a lot of really hidden gems, baked into all of that you only see when you're looking through that kind of positive lens is what I call it, but the positive lens of giving.
Absolutely. And long-term, like the strategy has to be long-term. Like, yes, there might be some short-term pain. There might be, it takes a while to get, a different kind of marketing strategy and to align with a social cause. It takes a while to get that up and running. But if you're committed, Kelly says this and I love it so much, you can plan for anything. So if you're committed to what you're planning for, you're not going to just give up because, okay, well, maybe it didn't get off the ground in Q1. You're actually going to look at it as a longer term strategy.
Right. Yep. And there's always going to be motivators to really link back to. So, it might be a long-term strategy, but those motivators aren't going to go away. They might change from, going back to employees. If it's an early stage employee, they're early in their career, their priorities are much different than someone mid-career or late career. So, they're looking for, new experience and trying to build that resume and the next rung to climb. That motivator is recognition, maybe it's financially or some opportunity within their growth path. But, a mid-career person, that's a totally different mindset. But they still have motivators. They're at a stage where now they're looking for that career stability, knowing that when they're going into work, they're coming back with money that is going to be caring for their children and aging parents and whatever stage they're at that point. And their motivators might still be recognition, but in a different way, or being able to include their family in whatever they're doing. So, you can make it a long-term goal and different milestones along the way for every age employee and for every stakeholder that's involved. And I always tell, when I give people these strategies and campaigns to go forward with, and the employees and employers say, is it really okay to be talking about it this much and saying, oh, look at us, we're giving back. And it's not about that. It's not a bragging rights or anything like that. It's sharing with your community what you're doing, because you are just trying to encourage and promote. And you know what? It's that opportunity to create the partnerships beyond just your cause partnership. Your client, your biggest client, might have no idea that you had anything to do with that campaign unless you had given that message out, and he is on the board, and he's so excited that you're part of that, and he wants to help with your referral program. Like, giving that message isn't about bragging; it's about including, about involving and encouraging.
Yep, it's sharing, and you have to do that, and that's how it does. You're right; it opens the door for other opportunities that become even bigger than someone could have conceived of if they were just designing strategy in a vacuum.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It sounds like, Katie, a lot of what you're saying sounds like it's important for the companies to, the work you do with them is help them figure out their why. Like, why do they want to engage in some cause marketing? Why do they want to put this strategy together? Why do they want to go in this direction? And I'm curious about, on your website, RightCause has a really clear why. And if you wouldn't mind just taking a minute, what is the why behind your organization? And then how do you, as the leader, maintain it and really live by it in the work that you do?
So my why it started very personal, and then grew into my Right Cause mission and purpose. But my why was very basic in the beginning for many reasons, but my personal why was I just wanted to do good for good people, because I was at a point where I felt I was constantly misaligning myself with people, entities, jobs that didn't align with my values and what I believed in, and it was taking a toll on me. So I felt that, with that change, and if I wanted to go out on my own and start my own company, I had to be behind something that I could live, eat, and breathe, and really drive home and fully support. So my business why is to teach, to be a catalyst, to help other businesses do well while serving a social purpose. And I do that because there is too often the scenario where either businesses think they're too small to do any major impact, or don't know how to get started, or are in fear of jeopardizing their name with the age of communication being that it is. And I want to help businesses realize that financial and societal value through mutual benefit partnerships in their community. I'm really big on just, using the sources that are in your own backyard and getting everyone involved for mutual benefit, so it's a sustainable, long-term initiative, because it's something that everyone can benefit from. The business needs a long-term plan to engage their employees, to promote their brand, and these nonprofits are seeing a massive change in landscape for fundraising, and they need to be, changing their strategy as well, and it's turning more to the corporate donations rather than individual donors. So finding a solution for that was really important to me.
I love that. And I think it's so evident just from listening to you talk, how you turn your personal why into, this business and how that has grown and shaped the professional why that RightCause has out there in the world and the work that you're doing. I love it. Yeah.
Thank you.
I love it, Katie. I'm glad that you took the entrepreneurial leap.
Thank you. I am too.
Right, and I'm sure that many organizations will benefit from the work that you're doing. So we've got a minute or two left here, but just to kind of maybe wrap up on the business side of things, and Laura may still have another question for you, is how, if there's someone out there listening who thinks, like, I want to get in touch with RightCause, right, because we've been talking about this and it just sounds like something I want to follow up with. They want to champion a cause. What should they expect in terms of who should be involved on their end and the level of commitment they should make? Just kind of like high level, like let's help set their expectations for what they're getting into so they can be courageous and not fearless.
Sure. Yeah. The biggest thing is the leadership team has to be behind this first and foremost, just because, it's not going to stay in play unless they have that approval. And, getting marketing teams and HR teams involved is also important, because they are going to be the voice for employees. They're going to be the one that's engaging the internal stakeholders and then melding that with the external needs of the company. And being ready to really dive deep and figuring out what your business purpose is beyond a profit. It's a little jarring for some people that have never thought of it that way.
Right.
And so just being mentally prepped for the questions of, why are you getting out of bed in the morning? It's being ready to answer that honestly and finding a solution and committing to it.
Awesome. Love it. Yep. I love it. My little coach hat is on, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's exactly what we need to be asking people is, why do they get out of bed in the morning to do their job? And if the answer is only profit, then that's not, a good partner for your organization. But I think that, the more people that Kelly and I talk to, and the more conversations we have, and the more things that we read in, the news and the business world, there is such a call in the corporate world for things to change. There is such a call for, Katie, you said it really well earlier, you're spending a lot of your life at work, and, turnover is crazy. And if you feel engaged and if you feel that your why aligns with the company's why, there's a study, and I'll try and find it for the show notes, but there is a study that basically says people who know their values are going to be more engaged in an organization who also knows their values. Even if those two values actually match, they don't have to be identical values. Right. But if you know yours and your company knows theirs, obviously if they match, that's, a whole nother level. But if you know your values and the company knows their values, there's such a strong level of correlation and engagement there. And this is really the work that you're helping companies do. You're helping them get clear on, who they are, what are they doing beyond a profit, and how can they make that a part of their organization every day so that their employees feel engaged. Going back a few episodes, it helps in values-based hiring. It helps in all of these things. Obviously branding and PR, again, to the Nike example, but just, holistically as a corporation and all the way down to the individual folks that work there, it's going to be a positive impact, on the company and on the world, because there is just such a call for corporations and companies to do business differently.
Absolutely. And if there's anything I can suggest to people on an individual basis, it would be to really do some self-reflection. I did that when I quit my job and didn't have my next stage entirely lined up yet, which was so nerve-wracking for a type A person like me to do.
Oh, hey! Oh, hey!
So that was terrifying, but it led me down a path of just really taking a minute to figure out why I was so, uncomfortable and unsettled with what I had been doing, that to the point that it motivated me to quit, and what I was going to do going forward. And I found it's a Japanese concept called Ikigai.
And I was just going to say that. Yep.
Yeah. So reason for being. So just finding that intersection of your values, what you like to do, and what you're actually good at, and what society could actually benefit from. That common ground, that lowest denominator, is what is your purpose. And it worked for me, and I am convinced it will work for everyone if you take the time to do it and be honest with it. So I would just suggest that for anyone that's looking to take that first step in business or personal life of just finding purpose.
Yeah, what a great way to leave this episode. That I think that really that kind of summarizes what you do, Katie, is you and your organization, RightCause, help the companies tap into their own Ikigai so that they can do, market differently and put some cause in the world and infuse it into their organizations as well.
Just here to make your marketing matter. That's what it's all about.
Yay! Katie Wright, thank you so much. Katie Wright from RightCause. Where can people find you if they want to learn more? And if there's anything that you're excited about that you want to share, drop it in.
Sure, yeah. Go ahead and visit my website, RightCauseConsulting.com. There's a whole bunch of resources on there. You can visit my blog, find some articles that I've written. You can read more about why I started this company and that whole personal turmoil that started this whole journey. And, if you're looking to take the next step with your company, or even just having a discussion to say where you're at and what you think might be a good idea for the next step, there is, more stuff on my website under the contact page, and go ahead and drop me a note and I'll get back to you.
And I'll just add to that too, Katie, for anyone who is listening, maybe you won't have access to our show notes because we'll put some of that in our show notes. If they're looking for you on LinkedIn, you are Katie Wright, WRIGHT, of RightCause Consulting, RIGHT, cause.
Yeah,
I love it when things just align for people in that way. So this was all perfect. And I am so excited that you were able to be here with us today. Thank you so much for your time, Katie, and for the valuable contributions that you're making in helping organizations evolve.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it, guys.
Thanks, Katie. Take care.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode, and we would love to hear from you. Send your comments, your questions, suggested topics to podcast@doinggoodbusiness.com. If you'd like, visit our website of the same name, doinggoodbusiness.com. Remember, you can always rate and review us. Wherever it is that you listen to your podcast, feel free to share it. Until next time, we encourage you to take one small step toward doing good business.